In this video, I'm going to talk about my first imaginal therapy appointment during my treatment for PTSD. And I'm going to talk about what it was like going through it, kind of what we did, and then my reactions afterwards. If you have not watched my previous videos, this video is not going to make a whole lot of sense to you. I would encourage you to at least watch the last video, if not starting at the beginning. And those links are in the comments section of this video. So, I told you in the last video that my imaginal therapy was going to center around my sexual assault at 16. I don't think that it needs to be explained why that would be a traumatic event, and so I'm not gonna, I already went into some detail. So I'm just gonna try to focus on kind of explaining how the therapy went, what we did, and what it was like afterwards. So one aspect of imaginal therapy that I think makes it even more difficult is that you have to describe the entire event in detail in present tense. So you talk about it like it's really happening to you right now. So you have to close your eyes and start at the very beginning, and in as much detail as possible with descriptions and emotional words and all that stuff, say, this is happening to me, instead of this did happen to me. And time protects us from these things. And in fact, it's a little bit why PTSD is such an issue, because I've described feeling like a prisoner to my past before, because you have to keep reliving these events. It's almost like these events in my past refuse to give way to time. They refuse to let me go. And so time is not protecting me because I keep reliving them. But reliving them in my head is still very different from having to describe them to somebody else as if they're happening right now. It's scary beyond belief. But, I really understand now after doing it why it needed to happen. It does really feel like cleaning out a wound. When I was a kid, I was pretty rambunctious, very much a tomboy, and I fell out of trees, and I scraped off half the skin on my leg from rollerblading, and fell on my bike hundreds of times, and would just scrape myself all up and just get back on the bike and keep going. So I had this experience of Mom having to try to clean out these really nasty, sometimes already scabbed over wounds that were filled with grit and stuff. And she used to take a fingernail brush, with really short bristles, like really tough plastic bristles, and she would scrub this abrasion, and it was so painful. And I remember at the time thinking she was a total barbarian for doing it. It was so painful. But she was trying to get the scab open so she could get the wound clean. And let me just clarify now, looking back, she was not being barbaric. She was as gentle as she could be. But it's a painful experience, having to clean out these dirty, pussy, nasty wounds. It hurts. And it sucks, and you have to do it anyway. Very much so. That is how it felt. So there were a couple other elements to the therapy. We started out at the beginning with and this is how DBT is. They're very scientific and methodical, and they make you rate all of your emotions and how you're feeling ahead of time. And I always keep track of what kind of risky behaviors I've engaged in over the week. Did you feel like hurting yourself? Did you feel like killing yourself? All that stuff. And one of the reasons why it was safe for me to move forward into this part of therapy is because I've had none of those risky behaviors, but we keep track of them anyway. But also rate your rate your level of disgust from 1 to 100. Rate your level of fear from 1 to 100. Rate your level of anger. Rate your level of joy. So we fill out a form like that before we start and then afterwards. And we also went through a little exercise right before doing the imaginal part. That was, we created a pie chart, actually. We created a pie chart that indicated the different percentages of blame for the event. So, what percentage of blame do I give to myself? And what percentage of blame do I give to my attacker? What percentage of blame do I give to my friend who left me alone at the party? And what percentage of blame do I give to my parents? Because I was clearly already acting out, and I was already unhappy, and I mean, everybody feels like their parents should have protected them from something like this. So, I was surprised by the well, okay, I wasn't, because I've already known this before. I know myself. I gave myself a very high percentage of blame because I was there, I was at the party, I put myself in that compromising position. And it's kind of funny because I've always considered myself pretty progressive as far as women's issues, well, really just human issues in general. And if I was talking to a friend who was divulging, this kind of experience to me, I would tell them that it was not their fault. If they said no, 0% is their fault. And I would make that very clear. And yet, in my own experience, I do blame myself. And it does make me kind of a hypocrite. But I don't think it's because that I truly believe that it is the victim's fault. I think it's because I am just like everybody else. It's really normal for victims of sexual assault to blame themselves. And it was really interesting for me to kind of see that I am no different from anyone else. And that was kind of in a way, it was a comforting realization. Sometimes it's good to feel like everybody else, especially when you are completely traumatized by something. If you can say, oh, well, this is a normal reaction, this is a reaction that a lot of people have to this, you can kind of take some of the blame from yourself. I'm not the only one with PTSD. I'm not the only one who freaks out and screams at their parents because they have PTSD, because they were hurt. That doesn't necessarily take all of the responsibility off of my actions, but it feels better to know that I'm not alone and that this is a normal human reaction to trauma. Not everybody's reaction, but a common one. This is something that this is how other people respond to. Well, a lot of other women respond by feeling guilty and shamed, and they feel like it's their fault. And I've spent years and years and years telling myself that I am enlightened and different, and I'm not. And I think I always knew that. My therapist attributed this partially to some of the avoidance. And in fact, it also showed up in the emotions that I had before and after the imaginal part. Now, she had told me before that it was very common to start out feeling afraid and to end by feeling angry. And the reason is, at first you're scared. Once you get rid of the fear and you face the fear, you're allowed to feel angry and violated because that's normal. But the fear was kind of getting in the way. And so you're able to continue with that process of, oh, somebody hurt me. Or something hurt me. I know that PTSD is not always about assault. But something damaged me, changed me forever, and you're able to then continue on with normal emotional responses to this. And again, I've often compared this to grieving. grieving is not exactly the right word, but the response that we have when somebody hurts us. You go, oh, wow, that hurts. And then you go through, I'm angry at you. I have a right to feel this way. And, and then coming to terms with it. So it's normal to feel angry afterwards because you're not afraid anymore, but you recognize that you have been hurt. And that's a normal response, and you have a right to feel angry. I actually started out really angry because I knew that I had a right to feel angry. Again, this is something that's very close to my heart, sexual assault. It's something that I've dealt with a lot of my friends. It's something that I educate myself about. I donate a lot of money to charities that address issues of human trafficking and sexual assault. And so I know that you're supposed to feel angry. And this is, I think I treated it beforehand. It should be the right way. Actually, I knew that I was supposed to feel angry and that I was supposed to feel violated, and these were healthy, correct ways to feel. And I spent that whole week after kind of touching on it and opening up the scab, feeling super angry. What I felt absolutely none of, which is not normal, but maybe supposed to be healthy, was shame and guilt and self-blame. And I didn't report any of that beforehand, and I did afterwards. A lot of the anger drained out of me after going through the event, and I had to do it more than once. So after the second time through, I remember just feeling that all the anger had just washed away, and all I felt was ashamed and embarrassed. And a little bit like when you have one of those dreams where you're naked in front of the whole school, exposed, guilty. And I think it's because I was repressing those feelings because I knew that they weren't right. Not that I was ashamed of those feelings, but just, I don't know, I had avoided them. I'd close them off because I knew that they weren't right. And it's true, I shouldn't feel this way. I should not feel guilty because somebody sexually assaulted me. And I should not feel ashamed because I was taken advantage of. But I do. And that's normal. It's normal to feel that way. And I'm no different from any other 16-year-old girl who gets assaulted. No matter how enlightened I think I am, and no matter how much I educate myself, and no matter how much I advocate for other victims of sexual assault, when I was assaulted, I felt guilty and ashamed. I felt like it was my fault. And this is where rationality falls short. I'm a human being and I have feelings. And sometimes it doesn't really matter what your mind knows. Your emotions say otherwise. And, it was just really, it was a surprise to me. I did not expect to feel that way. I did not expect to discover some of those insidious feelings underneath all the rest of it. But it was good. It needed, we needed to bring those to light. I needed to realize that I have those feelings so I can deal with them. It was good. And it was painful. And I made it. Again. I survived. And I didn't go insane. And I didn't die. And I will carry on. I don't actually know what we have planned for my next therapy session. I'm not sure if we're going to finish up with this or if we're going to move on to a new. I have a whole list of traumatic events. I don't know how much time we spend on each one. But there's a lot of mixed feelings right now. This week has been harder than last week when I was angry and, having flashbacks actually in some ways. after treatment, I was very depressed, and more so, I feel kind of like I've lost my footing. And I think it has to do with my mind rearranging itself and kind of coming to terms with all this stuff. And I was told during the beginning of therapy that there is scientific proof that this type of therapy has a physical effect on your brain. So the memories, these traumatic memories exist in tight clusters in your brain, and what this therapy does is it diffuses those clusters. So that has a physical effect on neurons in your brain. Your brain is literally physically rearranging itself. And I kind of feel that way right now. I feel like my brain is really jumbled. I've actually had flashes of random memories, not even traumatic ones. I'll have periods of time where I kind of get really disoriented, and I just feel like pictures are just flashing through my head really, really fast, and I can't hold on to them. Like, my brain is, is literally having a meltdown. It feels like a fritzing computer or something, like zzz, zzz. And it's kind of alarming and distracting, but I'm trying to just kind of ride the wave here, and let it do what it's doing. I tend to be extremely self-aware, and so I might be more likely to notice my brain rearranging itself than some people. I'm not saying this is good or bad, or I'm so aware of my internal climate that what to me is very alarming and very tangible. I can feel my brain moving itself around. I could be just kind of extra sensitive to what's happening inside my brain. But I'm not about to freak out and turn myself in to the hospital or anything yet. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have today. Pretty weird. Feeling a little out of it. So I will let you know what happens next week.